All right, thank you all for joining. There we go. All right. And then I just asked that everybody be muted while you are on, but if you both want to be more interactive, you are promoted to panelists if you would like. All right. So while we're going through the presentation, we'll speak and then we'll ask if you guys have questions and throughout the presentation. And so then I'll, then go ahead and unmute. You can use the raise your hand, but I'm not sure if it shows up for panelists actually. And then we are going to record this, and then that way you guys can view it later, any of your friends that might be interested as well. And then that way we just have it also for other uses. And then we take the recording and it's on YouTube. So if you do not want to be on YouTube at all, which is when you would unmute, your face will show up in the corner. Just don't turn the camera on or just type in your questions and then that'll keep you more private. And let us know so I don't put you on the spot. There we go. So thanks to Mrs. Rogers, something we've talked about, worked with the Boulder City Youth Bass Club with, but this time we actually are getting it going full-fledged. And this is the After School Fishing program. We kind of started a virtual option last October, and we will do that again right after you guys finish your after school in-person fishing program. Then we will also have our fish camp through the webinar, and we'll have a couple sessions in person as well. And that'll be during, we call it Nevada Week at the end of October before the Nevada holiday. So my name's Abby Zarnecki. I am the Angler Education Coordinator for the Southern region, and your leaders for your in-person fishing programs will be Claire Clark and Michelle Lopez, and we'll also have Nicole Hamlin come in as well. And so we have Claire and Michelle on tonight. So what we'll show you is what you need to know before you go. And this is for anything you do outside. I highly recommend the philosophy know before you go. Do a little bit of research. It'll save you in the long run. Make a checklist, but we'll go through all that and where you can find awesome checklists. And then our program overview, what we're going to learn out there. A little bit about bait tackling gear, and we'll go more into it if you have specific questions, and then responsible recreation. And that's what we're all about teaching. So before you go out there, make sure if you're 12 and older, you have a Nevada fishing license. 12 to 17 have a youth license, and you can get all those at endowlicensing.com. We have QR codes, makes it really easy. You don't have to come into the office anymore, even if it's your first time license, but you do have to have your social security number for a Nevada resident license. And one of the places you can find an awesome checklist is takemefishing.org. It is a state partnership. They get grants just like we do, and they've created, trying to think, TikTok videos. They have tons of videos that we share in. They have our links to our website. So definitely recommend takemefishing.org for any extra information that we may miss or something that comes out that you think of at like 8 o'clock at night and I can't answer and you're out fishing already. And then just have your fishing license and know what is legal and what is know what is a legal catch and what is the legal limit. So all those fishing ponds, like the ones you guys are going to be at Floydland Park, Sunset Park, Boulder City Park, Mesquite Park, they all have fishing ponds, but the limit is 3 total fish. 3 total sport fish, unlimited carp, and then like places like Desert Shores or Lake Mead also have endangered species. So those we do not take out of the water whatsoever. If you hook it, keep it in the water, work that hook out as much as you can and make sure that fish swims away. But if you catch it and it has a tag, please let us know too. All right, so here's what we're really getting into. Sorry, this fully now that I'm thinking about it. So we're going to do 1 hour in-person classes. The 0.5 is if you guys want to stay out there, if you guys show up early while we're setting up. And including today, it'll be about 5 to 6 weeks. So we will for sure have 4 in-person sessions, depending on the fishing forecast, which should get better. The fishing may be a little rough to start, but it'll definitely get better as we get more experience. Just because I do track the moon cycles with it, and if they're up or if the moon's up or down during the day. So we definitely need that in the afternoon while we're out there. We don't want them feeding at night and then not wanting to eat all day. By the time we get out there, they're definitely going to be hiding out for a while. So we are looking at extending it to the full 6 weeks, and then that'll also include the Nevada week for the fish camp. So we're going to teach fundamentals and even some advanced practices. We will have some guests come in, some of our certified instructors, and certified means that they've had background checks. Most of our certified instructors are specialized in fly fishing, so I thought that might be a little fun twist at the end. We have some great beginning rods that are really fun on the ponds, and we'll see some pictures coming up of Claire and Michelle catching some really nice fish at one of the urban ponds as well, on their first trip with these guys. Everything's going to be hands-on, skill-based, and you'll get tons of casting practice every single session. And we will give out material each time you come. And we should have a fishing gear setup for you as you leave. So with COVID, we took our cones, made them station official. And so everyone will be assigned a station. That'll be your section to fish in. And when you're fishing in the middle of it, you won't be able to hit anybody on either side of you either. So not only are you social distancing, you're also being an ethical angler. And that way you can't hit anybody to your left or right as you're trying to cast out. We will have the cart and all the materials in it. We'll have a little table, and Claire and Michelle will start each session with a hands-on activity that'll help you become a better angler. And that includes making a lure or practicing our knots, working on tackle, and actually working on your fishing equipment and making sure it's set up for the water you're fishing. So as I was just saying, you will have that shoreline station set up. Your parents will assist you on the water after your instructor teaches you everything. So the easiest thing, and based on 6 years of experience doing these classes, the best thing is to have the kids and parents together listening, watching, the parents being as much of a student as the kid. And then that way you are able to help during the activity, and we're there to oversee kind of. So just like we do with fly tying, we have our students watch one lesson of tying a fly, then together we tie a fly, and then the students are kind of on their own to make that fly, but we'll, walk through it again together. So then that way the kids don't have too many voices going on as well, and everyone's on the same page. If you do have your own gear, you can definitely stay after the program and keep, especially if it's really good fishing, stay out there as long as you want. The first session is going to still be pretty hot in the afternoon, but we definitely have some good shade at area 2. So hopefully everyone's familiar. We'll send out a reminder with that, and I'll send a little map. But right when you come into Floyd Lamb, you just tell them that you're here for the fishing program at Area 2, and and your instructors will meet you there. You'll see the truck or Endow logo on a vehicle, and yeah, so it's a big canopy, and the 2 is like on the picnic area. So here's some of the catches that they got even on a fly rod. So it's a pretty good size bluegill. Most of the bluegill will be a little more similar to the one that over here that Claire has, but it's still fun. And bluegill, as small as that is, they bite and latch and pull. They're pretty strong little fish, and they're really fun to catch even on the beginning rods. And so what we would like to start with is a spin cast, which is the closed-faced reel, and that way the line doesn't get tangled up. You literally just have one button to worry about casting. You put it over your shoulder and then cast it out, give yourself a thumbs up, and that's all the kids have to worry about for casting. And then once they reel, you just kind of tighten the line a little bit and leave it. Especially at Floyd Lamb, you either have to leave it on the bottom, don't mess with it until you get a really good hit, or steadily bring it in above all the roots. But there are so many roots at Floyd Lamb because of all the trees along the edges that if you like mess with it too much and let it settle, it gets caught in the roots. And then that's a whole nother lesson on how to detangle your line and make sure it doesn't get stuck covering the bottom of the pond. So examples of hands-on practice, this is pre-COVID, but this is with our Boulder City Bass Club. So each lesson is going to work into the next lesson. So we're just going to start out with the basics, like what habitat you guys are fishing, what fish are in those kind of habitats, what we stock, what we don't. The invasives that are out there, that'd be really fun to catch one of those monster carp out there. We saw a few jump in last week when we went and tested the water. And so they'll go after anything we put out there too. They were definitely going after the flies, which was kind of funny to see a carp jumping out of the water instead of feeding off the bottom. But you will have an instructor there with you. So yeah, we'll do a station at the picnic area, and then we'll go out to the shoreline. And so it'll only be an hour. So 4:30 to 5:30 at Floyd Lamb Park. And then if you guys want to stay, you're allowed as long as the park's still open. And I believe once it gets a little later, I don't think it is until November, we'll double check again. It's usually whenever that is. So some examples, we'll have little starter bags of bait and tackle just in a baggie together. And some examples will be, we don't like to use power bait because it's just messy. I do recommend power bait on your own once you're experienced with it, but power eggs work just as well, I promise. I've tested it a million times with my kids and with classes. And then it got covered up by the orange block. Under here are these little neon worms, and we're going to use green grubs because the bluegill and trout love them. And then these were just some donated rods from Bass Pro Shop, but we do have brand new sets for the kids. And if we have any kids under, I would say under 7 that are just starting out, we do have casting plugs to start for them as well. Okay, so making fishing comfortable. We do not need all the bells and whistles like she has on. It is way comfortable. Obviously, she's standing in the water and not freezing, but you really don't need all that. I honestly take a $10 sling backpack as mine, or a $10 fanny pack, and we'll have little tackle boxes that you stick in that bag or your pocket even, depending on how big your pockets are. I do recommend a hat and sunglasses for protection, especially at the beginning when we're flinging hooks around. It's just basic safety. Luckily I was learning fly fishing and had glasses on, but my instructor was helping me whip my line out and flicked me right in the glasses with the hook. So it happens to everyone, no matter how long you've been fishing. So yeah, a bag or a vest, even like a little vest, a little jacket. When it gets cooler, the little tackle boxes fit perfect in those. We'll have those set for you. Multi-tools are great. I don't have mine up here. But multi-tool, or actually I do, I'll show you guys afterwards when we go through some more stuff. I'll get my bag out. Especially the ones with this, like they're little itty bitty ones. I think they're right by the checkout at like Sportsman's, and they have the pliers, which helps unhook the fish. You don't even have to touch the fish, and then that way you don't ruin the fish. And they swim away a little safer. And then also it has the line cutter right on the inside of the pliers. Those I highly recommend multi-tools more than a knife. You're going to need that grip for more things than you would the knife. And then make sure it's reliable. I do recommend Zebco or Shakespeare equally, but other brands are obviously the more expensive, the more reliable, and the warranty's better. But to start out, Zebco and Shakespeare are great. And then again, at home, I do recommend using casting plugs. Old lures without the hooks, just cut them off. Or bass worms are great on a closed hook or a swivel, and even just a bobber, and practice casting that out and bringing in some leaves or something like that. And again, like a basic checklist on takemefishing.org if needed. And I can follow up with all this too, and it'll be on your handouts. So if you don't have anything, do not worry about bringing anything the first day. We will get you started with all of it. We have loaner equipment that we'll be bringing out. Every year we print a fishable water guide, or sorry, fishing. Sorry, let me start over. Every year we print an angler's guide, and inside has the fishable waters map and for each region. And then you break it down into your county, and then that gets broken down into streams, lakes, and reservoirs. So we consider our urban ponds, lakes, or reservoirs. And so there's even Cold Creek up at Mount Charleston, and that'll be one of our trips, I believe in November, and that'll be for fly fishing. And if you're interested, I definitely recommend logging on to that webinar so that you can go out the following Saturday as well. And so you can see like some of the other areas. This map's from, trying to think why did I circle this whole thing? But like crappie, you can find in Nesbitt, Echo, and Eagle Valley Reservoir. And those are about 2 to 3 hours away from Las Vegas, a little north, and the weather's a lot cooler. And so inside with that chart is the fishable water map, and it's all broken down. This one's really hard to see, but we do have a large version in the office and in the truck. And each water is linked to like CL for Clark County, or ES for Esmeralda, and L over here for Lincoln County. And that's around 28, like right in the middle of the guide. Usually southern region gets the middle folds, so this is right out of the middle. Oh, and also, let me see if this will work. See what time we're at. Yeah. Really quick, show you guys this. So at fish.wildlifenv.com, you click on the map version, and then you link in, just like on a Google map, you zoom in. and you click on the water you want to fish. So say we want to go to Lake Mead, and up top it lists all the fish that are in there and all the species. And then we go back to the map, zoom into our area again. And these are all waters across, these are all the waters across all of Nevada. And then each of them are broken up into species, and you can even click it here. So say we want rainbow trout and we're in the southern region, or you can even just say Clark County. So it zooms right into that. And we're going to go out here to Floyd Lamb, northwest part of the valley. And it's even outlined for, well, the main pond is outlined for you. When we click on that, and it shows that we have largemouth bass, bullhead catfish, channel catfish, bluegill, green sunfish, and rainbow trout. And they're not in there all the time year round. Rainbow trout need waters below around no more than 60 degrees. So they kind of die off in the summer or get eaten by the cormorants, circle of life. And then we bring them back out when it cools off in November, once we get those north winds going. But while we're here, so you come into the park right over here. There we go, down Brent. Here's our little gate. Drive around, go past this big main parking lot, keep going a little bit. And they even have the buildings on here for you. So it'll be these covered restrooms here. I'm sorry. It is these, this is the restroom. This is the covered canopy picnic area. And then it doesn't list the parking lot, but the parking lot is like right down here. So you'll park right after and walk back to our interactive in-person lesson area. I definitely recommend this website. Let me go back to the presentation. All right. Sorry, and I haven't paused. Does anyone have any questions yet? All right. Another second. We'll get into the fishing part here in a little bit, and then we'll definitely get into it at the events. Oh. Thank you. And Michelle just shared the link for you guys if you want to copy it and save it to your computer or phone. All right. Michelle, actually, do you want to present this part? This is always yours. I know I'm putting you on the spot if you're ready.
Sure.
All right.
So what is an ecosystem? This is always something that we want to kind of teach our kids about while we are out there over at the lake, the river, the pond, whatever body of water that we are at. And so an ecosystem consists of two living and non-living factors. So those are abiotic and biotic factors. And an ecosystem encompasses everything from the one individual little fish that we may be looking at over to the community, the habitat, and everything within it. So there are, I believe, 4 different types of freshwater ecosystems. So we have our rivers, lakes, ponds, and streams. And in this picture, there is the whole ecosystem, our freshwater ecosystem. So there are living and non-living factors in this picture alone, and upon first glance, it may be difficult to see and pick out, but something like wind or water could be one of those non-living factors, while other things like the plants and the trees that we see are those biotic factors. So those were our biotic and abiotic components, and if anyone wants to guess some more, we can go ahead and throw those in the chat if you'd like. I know I'm making Abby go back and forth and all around. but we'll be learning about more of those as we're out over at Floyd Lamb as well. Would you like this part back, Abby, or do you want me to cover it? Okay, so when we are out going to fish, where are the fish? They're in the water, but sometimes I'll go out there and I won't get a bite the whole entire day, and I'll be like, where are they? So there are 4 factors that we want to look at when we are trying to figure out where the fish are. So we have temperature, sunlight, oxygen, and food. Those are all the things that, just like us, a fish will kind of consider where they want to hang out. So depending on the species, the temperature and the sunlight, so the time of year that we're at, the time of day, could be impacting where the fish are hiding in particular. And you can kind of see Abby's mouse hovering around, and that is a good spot for fish because there are also a lot of places for it to hide and get a good oxygen flow and get those nutrients and other food that they want to be comfortable around.
Well, now I am actually, I'm going to stop sharing for a second because I think I shared the wrong PowerPoint. 1 second. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, missing a couple slides, but we will there we go. Doesn't want to start here. Yeah. There we go. And we're back. All right. Glad you were able to check out the link. All right. So like I was saying before, I definitely recommend practicing at home. You don't have to get these specific fish. I do have cutout outlines that will give you to practice at home, but you can make your own fish. You can just cast one of the plugs that we'll give you as well, or a bobber or a bass worm. Honestly, anything. I just don't recommend hooks or anything too heavy. That way you don't have to worry about windows or cars or anything rough. So these are rubber, plastic. Actually recommend the rubber ones more, but these are like really soft plastic, like these fish. And I don't actually really recommend starting with the small fishing rods. I do recommend just getting them into the regular 5.5 foot fishing combos by Zebco or Shakespeare, and then that way they just get used to it. The line it gets a little tangled up, but there's so much in there. You just cut off where you need to, throw it in your pocket or bag for later, and retie the little fish, but half the time they can just keep recasting that. But if you ever do have a problem, feel free to let us know. We can definitely talk you through it if needed. All right. So one of our big things that Michelle worked on last year is don't ditch a fish. And I wanted to put this in there just in case you hear of anybody doing something like this or are curious about carp. Carp are not supposed to be in the waters. Somebody actually they started from the East. They're mainly from Europe and Asia. And it's a hardy fish, especially back in the day. They came over along railroads, and then they are a cousin of the goldfish. And then settlers along the way just kind of put them in the water, and they kept reproducing really well because they're a very adaptive invasive species. So they have taken over places like Paranagit that was an awesome bass fishery for a long time, but the carp get monsters into monster size like this guy has, and they just take over. So, and so do koi and goldfish can live like 20 years and turn into the size of a football. Speaking of Monday Night Football, they're about that size of the football that's on TV. So please be very conscious of that when you have to let your fish go. All the water's connected. Do not flush them down the toilet either. They go to places like the wetlands park. And most of the time they don't survive out there either. So try to rehome them is our first, should be our first instinct. And they usually push out native species. So like I was saying with the catfish, there's also, it was a native fishery along Lake Mead. There's a hot spring called Roger Springs, and now it's almost all aquarium fish. So like the little mollies and guppies have taken over. So we're a hotspot for many things, and that includes endangered species. It also is because of our dry climate and our water use. So I need to add that to one of these presentations one of these times. There's a great old 80s video of, I wanted to say it was like on one of the after school specials, but a fish is in a pond and this kid leaves the sink running and goes to answer the phone, and it's the fish, and he's like, hurry, turn off the water, I'm losing the water. And so seriously, every time you can turn the water off or you don't need it, please do. We are on top of aquifers and natural springs, and we have lots of native species that are holding on to dear life in those natural springs, and Floydland Park is one of those places that's still spring fed. The water comes up from underneath. It does stay a little bit cooler than most of our ponds do, but it's still spring fed. And so if we're not careful with our underground water, we're just going to keep getting redder and redder. So here's some pictures. Some people just don't know what they look like. So I just wanted to give you some examples of endangered species. These are not carp, and these are not cousins of carp. These are actually most of the native species from the Colorado River. We also had salmon before the dams. So these guys in salmon lived in harmony until the 80s. And then it slowly just turned into an entirely different ecosystem. So these they are out there. We have restocking programs for razorback suckers, humpback chub, patch nose chub, and these are just two different kinds of those. So if you catch these are one of those fish to leave in the water, get that hook out, cut the line. If they swallow the hook, just cut the line. And that way you're not ripping out their air bladder or their stomach lining. So that's that one thing we have to be really careful of when we get the hook out. And it is recommended if you can get little scissors or your little pliers right inside the mouth and cut that line so it's not hanging out. You definitely don't want the line hanging out, but keep that inside. They'll absorb it or pass it depending on how deep the hook is, and they'll be able to feed just fine. So being an ethical angler is awesome. You want to fish responsibly, and that means only catch and keep what you're going to eat. If you don't eat fish, don't keep it. And also don't use treble hooks. Treble hooks are really hard to get out of a fish, I promise. Even lures with treble hooks, I only recommend if you're really good at getting them out of the lip and you're really fast, or if you're going to keep it. So you got to be really careful with that when you're using treble hooks. Respect the water, the land, and your fellow angler. And that's why one more reason we actually do stations is so that you're conscious of your space. Never walk up on somebody else fishing, even if they're catching. I promise those fish are schools, right? And they go around the water and they're going to come to you, I promise. So give everybody space, protect the land, which means keep it clean of the fishing line, and keep your water clean as well. If you see garbage floating, make it one of your targets for the next catch and try to bring in that garbage, because sometimes it's windy and it goes in the water and we don't mean for it to. Let them go, let them grow, and select your harvest. And that means when you're catching a fish, try to go for those middle-sized ones. Know how big and small a fish is and keep the middle-sized ones. So down below Willow Beach, the guys are catching 10 to 30 pound, every once in a while 30 pounds, but mainly 10 to 20 pound striped bass. They're doing really well, but they also catch and release them. So we're going to tag them and see if they're catching the same one or if there's that many big ones out there. So they actually leave them and let them go because it's more fun to catch them over and over again. And they're using lures, so they catch it in the mouth and they're easy to get right out. Also, if they're really small, it is really a pain to clean that fish. So you don't need to keep a small trout or a small bluegill. Big bluegill are a little bit more, you'll get some better fillets out of them, but they're still pretty small. So it's up to you. Also the bigger bluegill, which are about 2 hand sizes, those are going to be our brooding, which is our spawning parents. And so if we want to catch more bluegill, we want them to reproduce and make more little bluegill. So we want to keep the bigger ones out there. Preserve your passion, which means just take care of it, protect our legacy, and spread the word. So keep sharing your passion for fishing with others. Tell them how awesome it is. A perfect example is Desert Shores. It's a private community, but we do a fishing event with them every year, except for last was our only year that we haven't done it in 10 years. And they're a total catch and release water. They actually keep some of those razorback suckers in the waters. And the coolest thing about this coming year is we actually over doubled our numbers. So lots of hands will be helping, but there's going to be more than 25 people out there, and we've never had more than 20. So there might even be more than that, but it's pretty neat to see how much everybody loves everything. And so this family goes out fishing, whether it's hot or cold out, whether or not 4 a.m. this little girl caught I should have shared her picture too. There's mom. So 3 generations out on the boat and catching stripers and this little girl got a rainbow trout actually off of Willow Beach at 5 o'clock in the morning Friday. So they practice it. They keep the middle-sized ones and they let the big ones and the small ones go. So be prepared when you go out. You can check our fishing report. Every week we change it up, or if it's pretty much the same, you know, we just say, and it's this again. Bring extra bags with you when you go out. Make sure you have your fishing license ready, downloaded, so that everybody sees, or only the game wardens will check your fishing license. So bring a bag for your stuff, bring a bag for stuff you might find. Every little bit helps. Go out prepared, especially Lake Mead. That's a huge body of water, and that weather changes within 30 minutes to an hour. And actually, when we were testing Floydland Park, I didn't know if we were going to have to call it for lightning. It was on my way home. I did see lightning strike actually on the other mountain. We went from the north to the south in an hour, and we heard the rumbling, but luckily it wasn't coming down on us. But when you see lightning and you're having a fishing pole in your hand, it's not necessarily the best idea. But literally on the south end of town, I saw lightning strike in a neighborhood, and I was like, hopefully they didn't lose their power. So just be prepared. The weather changes out here in 2 seconds. But it was in the weather report, and I definitely recommend the NOAA apps that use NOAA maps. They're the most precise. And then, yeah, here's the fishing report link. Do we have some questions? No, I gave a lot of information so far, and then Claire will have more for you next Monday. As long as we're registered, everyone that's going to be out there, we do need registered. That way we just haven't, especially if you're fishing. So everyone fishing that will need equipment, we need to have registered. That way we know how much to bring. And then that way the liability is saved. They have our first day. Claire, what was our first activity? I'm drawing a blank.
Really good question. And they'll find out on Monday when they come out at 4:30.
I believe it'll be knot tying and setting up our tackle. Oh. And see if we can see some fish. So I was telling the girls last time too, one of our instructors that I think he's been around for 15 years. He started when he was a teenager helping out, and he is now working at a fly shop and working on being a guide up in Jackson Hole. So he taught me fly fishing about 5 years ago. And one of the things I learned from him, and I take it no matter what kind of fishing I'm doing, is to look at the water, take my time, go ahead and set up my equipment on the water. And then like we were listening for splashes, but we were messing with our tackle, so we weren't watching the water. And then we realized it was just a carp. But I mean, then we throw something stinkier out to get their attention. So hopefully we'll probably have some ham now that I'm thinking about it too, because the bluegill, carp, catfish, all like ham, and hopefully we have another stocking this week. I know it sounds funny, but ham works better than hot dogs to stay on the hook too. Something I don't put in the fishing report. I actually just put hot dogs usually, but If anybody asks, I tell them ham. But yeah, we'll teach you how to thread it through, just like we would an anchovy or something like that. And you only need a little piece. You have to think of whatever fish you're going after's mouth. Bluegill mouths are literally maybe like a big one's going to be 2 inches, and normal one's only an inch. So any of your baits need to only be an inch, no bigger than an inch. And then I even recommend the hook. I think we only use size 8s or 10s at the most. Awesome. Yeah. I think I saw all 3, right? Mr. Clint. Okay. Are registered. Yeah. So any kid that's going to be fishing, yeah, please make sure they're registered for next week by Wednesday. Awesome. Yeah, we have the fly fishing class. We did share it on Facebook. That'll be the 20 seconds, the webinar, and it is a beginning class. I haven't seen what our attendance is like. So we'll start with the webinar, and then we will do the in-person the following Saturday. And I think we're going to do Boulder City again, just because it's nice and clear and we don't have to fight with anybody. So that's always an option too. All right. Well, thank you all for coming. Thank you for my co-hosts. Thank you guys for participating.